It's no secret that paying for college is expensive. More than 44 million people owe $1.5 billion in student loan debt. That's according to the Student Borrower Protection Center. The national nonprofit's mission is to protect borrowers' rights. Carolee McGrath sat down with Massachusetts State Senator Eric Lesser, a member of the advisory board, to learn more.
So this new group, it's a national organization, the Student Borrower Protection Center, was started by the actual former student loan watchdog in the Trump administration. Seth Frotman is his name. He was the student loan watchdog in both the Obama administration and in the Trump administration. He became so disgusted with the lack of enforcement around these student loan servicers that he decided with two of his colleagues to leave government, to quit and protest, and set up a new nonprofit advocacy group, which is really going to be like a consumer's union for student loan borrowers. The idea is there is no one right now solely focused on advocating for student loan borrowers. This organization is going to set up operations across the country to help students who are in trouble, but also very importantly to try to get student loan Bill of Rights protections in place in all 50 states.
So let's talk about that a little bit. You had it passed in the Senate last year. You want to reintroduce it. What would that entail? Just give me the specifics.
So the basic issue here is student loan servicing is completely unlicensed in Massachusetts and in most other states. In Massachusetts, we require a license to cut hair. We require a license to sell a used car. We require a license to sell insurance. We don't require a license to service what's often six-figure student loan debt, one of the most important financial decisions young people make in their entire life. How they're going to pay for college is completely unregulated on the servicing end. So the idea here is that you would create a licensing regime so that servicers, probably the most well-known one is Navient. People have probably seen that in the mail, or they maybe get the bills themselves. The idea here is that the state would be able to license these operators, monitor them for good behavior or poor behavior, and there'd be one spot in state government where students could go to get help or to lodge complaints if there's a problem. And very importantly, that person, that student loan ombudsman, would be empowered to enforce good behavior on these servicers. And if a servicer doesn't follow the rules, the license could be pulled and they could be kicked out of the state. Some of the examples of things that these servicers are doing are ballooning interest rates without proper notification. They'll send the payment notices in small, almost unmarked white envelopes, almost hoping that young people who move a lot and who often don't use paper mail are going to miss the notification. They don't properly notify people of income-based repayment plans, which people are entitled to under the law. They don't properly notify those working in public service, police, teachers, firefighters, social workers, human service workers, that they're eligible for an income-based or public service-based loan repayment plan. So this is not behavior we would tolerate from an appliance salesman, let alone multi-billion-dollar organizations overseeing what is in some cases for people well over $100,000 in outstanding loan debt.
Right, and the broader issue of that student loan debt, as kids are looking at applying for college, the tuition has increased by 200% in the last 20 years, I read as one figure, and it's insane. And you think to yourself, well, do you send your kid to a community college and let them get some of those courses out of the way? Or do you send them to a school that's going to cost $70,000 a year? I think it's a conversation that really needs to be had in high school.
Absolutely. This organization is focused on one element, which is the students right now who are paying their loans and who are not being looked out for, and who are in many cases being harassed and abused by these loan servicers. That's an immediate emergent issue we have right now that needs to be tackled. But absolutely, we need to zoom back here and take a look at what's really a ticking time bomb for our economy. $1.5 trillion nationally in outstanding student loan debt. To put that in perspective, that's more in outstanding debt than we had just before the crash of the housing crisis that triggered the Great Recession. This is among the most important economic issues facing our generation, the millennial generation, but also our entire country, and we need to do a lot. We need to bring the cost of college down, and colleges need to play a role in that, in bringing down the costs. We need to do more to make things like community college and state colleges more accessible, keep the costs low there, begin to invest again in public higher education. And I have, for example, a bill, and many of my colleagues are now working towards universal community college as an element of that. For example, transfer programs you can start at a community college college, transfer to a 4-year college to get your bachelor's degree, and end up doing that for a capped amount of money that's predictable and that people can plan for, and that's doable. Another element of this is, we need to take a look at the trades in vocational education. I've been a big advocate of this. You have great careers here in Western Mass. You actually have well over 1,000 vacant positions in, for example, advanced manufacturing fields that pay $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year jobs without having to get a 4-year college degree and without assuming that kind of debt. So we have to do a lot. I mean, the whole system needs to be reoriented towards the student and towards their future, not what's in the best interest of a private college or in the interest of a loan servicer that in many cases is getting floated and subsidized by the federal government to make money off the backs of hardworking kids and hardworking, in many cases, their parents and grandparents who are doing their best to help them as well.
You mentioned lowering the tuition at colleges. How do you even start to tackle that issue?
Yeah, well, it's a big topic. One thing that we do need to do, our public universities, we need more investment. If you adjust for inflation and if you look at where costs have gone over the last 20, 30 years, there's been a de-investment in a lot of our public schools and a lot of our community colleges. We need to do more to reinvest in public education to keep those costs down and stop pushing it all onto the backs of students. We need to have an honest conversation with our universities about their management practices. Right now they're not competing over costs, so they're spending tens of millions of dollars on new athletic facilities when they're raising tuition the very same year for students. That's not a sustainable system. Higher education cost inflation is way, way above the overall inflation in the economy. It's even rivaling and higher in some cases than healthcare cost inflation. So there's a lot happening here that needs to be unpacked. And I do think it's very important that we make a goal and get a real plan in place. For example, for universal community college and even universal 4-year college access. A lot of states, much more conservative than us, have already done this. Tennessee, for example, has a Tennessee Promise program that makes the first 2 years of an associate's degree free in Tennessee if you do community service and you do your part to keep your grades up as a student. If Tennessee can figure that out, I think Massachusetts can. So there's a lot to do.
That makes a lot of people uncomfortable, the whole idea of universal.
Well, I understand that, but there was a time when plenty of people thought universal K through 12 was an uncomfortable idea. When Horace Mann thought of universal public education in the 1800s, a lot of people thought that was a crazy idea or a pie-in-the-sky idea. The idea is as society progresses, it's never been more important to get an education. It's never been more important to prepare for the changing future of work. The point here, though, is, and the reason why we need a student loan bill of rights is we have quite literally hundreds of thousands of people in Massachusetts right now whose rights are not being protected when they get these menacing phone calls, when these get these ominous notices from student loan servicers that right now are operating without any kind of regulation or oversight whatsoever.